Obama completely lost control when J.D. Vance dropped a bombshell that left the room frozen in shock as he exposed a secret relationship between Michelle Obama and Letitia James, revealing not only that they were cousins, but that Michelle had used her formidable legal background to cover up Letitia's financial crimes for over a decade. What followed was a political earthquake. Vance stood firm and said this isn't just about family ties, it's about a systematic cover-up Michelle Obama had helped. Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, dodged taxes and avoided scrutiny through detailed legal strategies dating back to 2010, with email trails discussing everything from exploiting legal loopholes to concealing fraudulent financial transactions. Letitia James, who once stood as a crusader for justice, was now exposed as the architect of an intricate mortgage fraud scheme between 2012 and 2018 she used her powerful office to manipulate real estate deals and funnel illicit funds through offshore accounts, acquiring multiple properties with stolen money, all kept hidden from the public, and all with Michelle's direct assistance, who wasn't just a passive witness, but a legal enabler providing instructions on document falsification, asset concealment, and deception. Vance didn't stop there. He revealed falsified mortgage applications submitted by James, overstated her income, and understating liabilities to secure massive loans which under normal legal standards she would never have received. Michelle's involvement ensured those frauds remained invisible to regulators. Then Vance turned the spotlight onto the Obama Foundation, a so-called charitable entity once hailed as a pillar of progress. But as Vance showed, his reality was far darker. He presented financial records revealing that millions were routed to the foundation to entities like Narrative Strategy Consulting, which serve as a front for indulgent expenditures, including first-class travel, luxury dining, and executive perks. Under the pretense of social outreach, in 2017 alone, over $6 million were used for non-charitable purposes, including private chefs and extravagant retreats for the Obamas. Vance displayed charts and invoices, all painting a disturbing picture of systematic abuse of nonprofit status. Rhetorical, as every asked, is this the conduct of a true charity or a multi-million-dollar machine built to enrich a privileged few? Without waiting for an answer, he shifted to the Obama Presidential Center in Chicago, exposing photos of construction defects, cracks in the walls, exposed rebar, and water leaks, all ignored by officials, highlighting the foundation's reckless disregard for basic integrity. These structural flaws, according to Vance, symbolized everything wrong with the Obama legacy and obsession with image over substance. Then came the final revelation, as Vance outlined the personal cost of taxpayers and the public $. $2.4 million allocated in Q3 of 2023 alone was spent on luxury venues, elite travel, and bonuses for insiders instead of public programs meant to serve the nation. He looked squarely into the cameras and declared this isn't just charity fraud, this is a betrayal of public trust, a scheme by the elite to extract wealth under the guise of service. And as the room sat in stunned silence, Vance delivered his final blow. The Obama legacy is a lie built on deception and selfishness. And while this hearing may have ended, the truth was only beginning to surface, exposing the carefully crafted illusion of leadership as nothing more than smoke and mirrors. As the cameras flashed and reporters fought for position in the crowded Senate chamber, the atmosphere turned electric with anticipation. J.D. Vance stood firm now, completely in command of the unfolding narrative, as he turned the spotlight toward the next explosive chapter of his investigation, what had originally seemed like a narrow probe into the Obama Foundation's questionable finances had now exploded into a sweeping expose, implicating the highest tiers of political power. Vance clicked his mouse, and a towering graph lit up the screen behind him, showing a massive flow of money through the Obama Foundation funds that should have supported public outreach, education, and social uplift, but had instead been funneled into private luxuries for the Obamas and their inner circle. Then came the number that froze the room: $68,000 per trip. That's what the Obama Foundation averaged on private flights, lavish hotels, and personal security, all under the guise of charitable work. Vance's voice grew sharper as he pulled up invoice after invoice from supposed community engagement trips. But these were no civic missions. They were personal vacations cloaked in false righteousness. He rattled off figures with clinical precision: 17 trips in 2019 alone, each costing over $1 million, to private resorts, Balinese villas, and alpine retreats. Vance allowed the weight of those revelations to settle only briefly before hammering in the next round of data $2 million in Saudi Arabian art, $3.5 million for private chefs, $1.7 million on strategic planning events in Paris, In Dubai, none of it tied to actual service or charity, but rather to unrestrained indulgence masked as public service. He stood tall, facing committee eye to eye, daring them to refute what no one could deny, and still he was not done. The most damning revelation had yet to come. The invisible architect of this web of deceit, Michelle Obama, shielded her cousin. She had been an active participant. They were not just family. They were co-conspirators in a decade-long scheme to defraud institutions and manipulate the legal system. Vance detailed how Letitia James with Michelle's legal team had doctored mortgage applications, falsified financial records, and used her position as New York Attorney General to bury any attempt at investigation. This was not just about tax evasion. This was empire building on a foundation of theft, deceit, and political protectionism. The senators sat stunned as Vance walked them through specific examples where Michelle's legal acumen had been deployed to conceal wrongdoing and stall legal consequences. And then, without pause, Vance pivoted to another symbol of the Obama legacy, the Obama Presidential Center. He clicked again, and grim photos filled the screen. Construction flaws, cracks, and the foundation exposed. Steel water damage in the walls. Vance called it a monument to greed and deception, a structure built not just with bricks, but with arrogance and negligence. The center, which had been portrayed as a beacon of hope, had absorbed over $400 million, yet was riddled with defects. The truth was undeniable, and Vance made sure no one in that chamber would forget it. Vance continued, as the image of the half-finished Obama Presidential Center loomed behind him, and the truth could no longer be avoided. The funds allocated for this grand project had vanished into the pockets of contractors, into bloated consulting fees, and into five-star accommodations for the Obamas and their inner circle. The camera panned in on the haunting image of the unfinished structure. What had been promised as a beacon of progress for Chicago had crumbled into a hollow shell, a monument to misused power and unchecked greed, hastily assembled and dressed in layers of polished public relations spin. Vance spoke with precision. This was never about inspiration. This was a vault of influence, a vault of power, and a vault of taxpayer dollars used to reward the elite few who already had everything. The committee sat frozen in disbelief as Vance closed his initial remarks. But he made it clear he was far from finished. He warned that the network of corruption extended far beyond what had already been revealed, that they had only begun to peel back the layers of a much deeper rot. As he clicked through another set of documents, the faces of foreign benefactors emerged: Saudi royalty, Chinese tycoons, Turkish oligarchs' names linked directly to transactions that funneled millions into the Obama Foundation. These weren't philanthropic donations. Vance said, his voice cold and resolute. These were bribes, hidden in plain sight, payments for access, influence, and power. And it was Michelle Obama who had provided the legal machinery to make it all possible. She had drafted the frameworks, created the channels, and ensured the payoffs were protected behind legal smokescreens. Vance stood silent for a moment, allowing the magnitude to sink, and then spoke with chilling calm. We have receipts, we have testimony, and we have irrefutable proof the Obamas were not victims of corruption. They were its architects. The room fell into a stunned silence, and even the staunchest offenders of the Obama legacy seemed shaken. Vance had shattered the illusion. These icons of hope were exposed as political opportunists draped in charm, but corrupted at the core. The cameras captured every face in the chamber, while Vance made his declaration. The time for forgiveness is over. His time for justice. The air grew heavier as the American people watching from their homes absorbed the betrayal. They were no longer hearing about abstract misconduct. They were witnessing the fall of idols, the people they once believed and revealed as power-hungry criminals. Vance's voice cut through the tension again. Let's return to Michelle Obama. He said, colder, now more methodical. What we found is not just poor oversight or managerial failure. This is direct participation in organized criminal behavior. He presented a new set of damning emails projected on the massive screen, her name attached to legal memos, financial briefings, and internal instructions detailing exactly how to manipulate millions in donations. One email read plainly, if the money is moved offshore, make sure it goes through the Luxembourg fund. Letitia James has connections to keep this out of public. I gasped, filled the chamber. The message was unmistakable. Michelle Obama was not a passive bystander. She was directing the entire cover-up. Every legal move, every transfer, every loophole was coordinated under her guidance. What she had done was not just unethical, it was criminal. Vance continued. She used her legal expertise, her public image, and her political network to shield her cousin Letitia James from prosecution and to make sure millions disappeared without a trace. The very woman once celebrated as a role model had become the central figure in a fraud machine engineered for Personal gain, then Vance turned to Letitia James, once praised as a warrior for justice. He now revealed her true face. Letitia James was no crusader. She was a fraud, a predator in a suit. She had played both sides for years, building an empire, while cloaked in righteousness. Vance presented emails from James herself outlining how she had created fake identities, filed forged documents, and secured loans under false pretenses, laundering over $5.6 million through shell companies and false real estate deals. He said she didn't just break the law, she turned it into her weapon. She wielded her power to protect herself and her allies, and Michelle Obama made sure the trail stayed cold. He showed new evidence photographs that tied James to foreign investors with links to the Obama Foundation documents, proving she had approved offshore transactions to mask ownership of high-end real estate in Manhattan. Vance gestured to the diagram. Behind him, connecting names and funds, do you see how the money flowed, how the web spun itself in a perfect circle of power and payoff? This wasn't two rogue individuals. This was a calculated structure of favoritism, secrecy, and criminal collaboration. The silence in the chamber was now suffocating. Even seasoned committee members struggled to process the scale of the betrayal. The scandal wasn't theoretical. It wasn't limited. It had been in plain sight for years, a sophisticated machine hiding under the name of progress. As millions of Americans watched their trust crumble, this wasn't just about misused donations or foreign influence. This was a collapse of the very myth of political virtue. The truth that Vance had uncovered pierced the national consciousness, and there was no going back.